Now we're going to talk about parachute deployment pull priorities. And these are the priorities that you need to go through to think about deploying your parachute. First and foremost, you have to deploy your parachute at or above the planned altitude. Now there are some reasons to deploy your parachute early. You may not know what altitude you're at. If you're out of control, if you're just not comfortable with the situation, you can deploy your parachute. In other words, if you have enough altitude, you are in control, and you're relaxed, you can keep skydiving until you reach the planned deployment altitude. At the planned deployment altitude, you have to deploy your parachute no matter what. Whether you're stable, unstable, spinning, not spinning, upside down, at the pull altitude, you have to pull. If you have enough altitude, you do have some time to try and get stable before deploying. If it takes you more than 5 seconds to get stable, that could generally mean you do not have control and you should deploy your parachute anyway. If possible, and if altitude allows, it is always better to deploy your parachute while in a stable body position. This concept is so important that I'm going to kind of reiterate it again on this slide. So while you're skydiving, your job is to check your altimeter every 3 to 5 seconds or after each maneuver. If you have enough altitude, you're in control, and you're relaxed, you can keep skydiving until you reach the deployment altitude, and then you have to pull your parachute. If you get out of control during a maneuver, you have 5 seconds to try and get stable again, or you have to pull if you cannot get stable within 5 seconds. And as always, deploy your parachute at the planned altitude regardless of whether you're stable or unstable. Altimeters do sometimes fail, and there are ways to try and double check your altimeter while in free fall. One way to do this is to memorize what the ground looks like at different altitudes. So maybe as you're climbing in the airplane at 4,000 feet, if that's your deployment altitude, look out the window and try and get a visual memory of what the ground looks like. Then do the same thing at 10,000 feet. Look out, see the difference, and try and memorize what the ground looks like at 10,000 feet. As you're climbing, if there are clouds, you can also memorize at what altitude that cloud base is at. So let's say you come level with the cloud base at 5,000 feet. That will let you know while in free fall, once you pass the bottom of the cloud base, you're roughly at about 5,000 feet. You can also count in free fall. The first 10 seconds, once you leave the airplane, you'll go about 1,000 feet. Every 1,000 feet after that will take about 5 seconds. As you get more skydives under your belt, you'll start to have somewhat of an internal clock at the different altitudes that you're used to jumping at about how long the free fall should feel like before you need to deploy your parachute. And at any time, if you think your altimeter is broken or you're not 100% sure it's reading accurately, you can always deploy your parachute.